Bill Zender, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Steve. How are you doing?
I am doing well, thank you. And we're going to ask you a couple of questions today. We're trying to get some background information on the Phil Ivey Baccarat scandal. He won over $20 million. It was all over the place. 60 Minutes did a story on it. And basically, some people said it was cheating. Some people said it was an advantage play. So we're trying to get some input from you. You are a casino gaming consultant. You specialize in table game protection for the casinos, and you've also been an expert witness in court for gambling cases. So what we're going to do is Matt and I did some research, and so we're going to give a timeline of what we saw and what we read. And then we're going to get your impression as to whether or not that's accurate. And then you're going to explain how they were able to get away with this win of $20 million. So for anyone who doesn't know who Phil Ivey is, he's like the most famous poker player in the world. So now in 2012, he went to the Borgata Casino in Atlantic City, and he had a partner who played Baccarat with him. Kelly Sun, I think is her name. And they won $9.6 million, and the casino paid them the money. So what do you think of that so far?
Well, I think so far you're correct. You're on the right page there. One of the things that doesn't come out in the news is that Phil Ivey and Kelly Sun actually went in and played 4 different occasions at Borgata that year. They started out sometime in the spring, and I'm thinking they started in March. And they went in on those occasions until August, which was their 4th occasion. And that's when the Borgata had found out that their play might not be totally, let's say, honest.
No, okay, because now we have this other case where they went to London and they played there. So in August of that same year, they went to Crockford's Casino in London. And they won 7.7 million pounds, which is approximately $11 million. And they won that in 2 days. And Crockford's thought the win was a little suspicious, so they didn't give him his money, and they said they would give it to him later. But all they did was they refunded the original £1 million that he had put up, and they said they weren't going to pay him the rest of the money.
Yeah, that's when what he did was he and Kelly's son went into the Croxfords, and Kelly is actually part of the team. Phil Ivey was nothing but a face with a bankroll. It's not his idea. So Kelly's son was part of a team that had come in and terrorized Las Vegas for about 10 months in 2010, 2011. They had already scoped out the casino and found that the playing cards that they had on the table had some of the cards were cut wrong, so they had a wider pattern on one side than the other. So subsequently, Kelly and Phil went there and they played on the game, and they found some cards that they could manipulate and create this pattern, which is called a sort pattern.
Now, let me ask you here before I forget, don't mean to cut you off, but was it like a certain brand of cards, or it was a certain design on the back of the cards, or what was it? Was there a specific thing? Like, I assume it was not something every casino had, right?
Right. Well, just do me a favor, steer me back on course after I get through explaining this one.
Okay.
All cards, all casino quality cards have this problem. And the reason they do is when they print the cards, they print them in big sheets, and they adjust the machine, and the first sheet that slides down the machine, when they cut it one way, then it turns, and they cut the other way, and it drops down, and they package it. And what happens is every time that sheet, even though they're not real heavy, they have some weight, they hit the machine, and after, I don't know how many sheets are printed, let's say 1,000, 5,000 sheets, then the machine, when it cuts, is off a little bit. So when we start the cut, we start the process of printing, the first ones are cut probably perfectly. And then when they get towards the end of the run, they're not cut so well. Now, a lot of the card companies will do is they'll stop, readjust, and then print again. But every time they stop, it costs them money. So they try to run as many as they can through there. So you could find anything. We can find B-backs, we can find Hoyle, we can find Jamaica, we can find Cardamunde, and we will find those blemishes in some of the cards. Some of them will be perfect. I'm saying blemishes. Let's just call them sorts. We'll find those sorts, but in most cases, we'll also find perfectly cut cards.
Okay.
All right. Now, what they did was that Kelly had gone out and they had actually looked at all the different casinos in London, and for some reason they really liked Croxford's and they really liked this back pattern. So they got in there and they found, her and Phil found a game where the back patterns of the 8-deck Baccarat shoes were all the same, and they were sortable. So she sat down on the table, and basically what they did was they talked the marketing and casino management.
I'm sorry, but can we show the power? You did a whole PowerPoint presentation on this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe
Okay,
we could
so
show
yes,
that
let's
while
show
you're
it.
talking.
All right, so this is the design that you're talking
Right.
about, is this diamond pattern. This is what they were using, right?
And this isn't the cards they were using there, but this is a good illustrator, because go to the next slide, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you see where the circles are?
Mm-hmm.
Now we'll take the card on the right side. You'll see that there's like a 3/4 of a diamond on the right edge of the card,
Mm-hmm.
but on the left side, there's only a 1/4 diamond,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Now go to the next card. You'll see on the right side of that, you'll see about
A half.
2/3 of a diamond. On the other side, you only see 1/3.
Uh-huh.
So those are like two kind of cards. One of them is even cut worse than the other one is. But if you get real good and train your eyes, you can spin these cards, and you can actually treat them as marked cards.
Mhm.
So these are these aren't here, but you have casino quality cards that you could actually find that if you turn them, okay,
Mhm.
you could turn certain cards one way and certain cards another.
Now, and the whole reason this worked is because they were betting a lot of money. And when you bet a lot of money, casinos tend to bend over backwards and do meet any silly requests that you have, because Baccarat players tend to be very superstitious people. So I've heard stories of, like, if you go to these, like out in Macau, where the people are betting millions of dollars at a time, they have all these crazy suspicions, and they let the people bend the cards and do all sorts of stuff like that. So that was sort of following that same pattern, right? Where they were just betting a lot of money and getting the casino to do them their requests for them, correct?
Well, Matt, they brought Phil Ivey in because he was a face. Now, he also brought the bank, from what I understand, he brought a bankroll in with him as well. So they said, well, Mr. Ivey's here. What does Mr. Ivey want? Well, Mr. Ivey wants you to change your dealing procedure a little bit. So the casinos, they deal the cards out. They'll deal 4 cards out. And then when they go to turn them over, they'll take from the top of the card and they'll turn them over. So they'll turn them over lengthwise. So I turn and how the dealing procedure goes. 2 cards go to the player, 2 cards go to the bank. So the dealer reaches down and turns over the first 2 cards that go to the player, end over end, turns the cards that go to the banker, end over end, okay? Now, when you turn them end over end, what you're not really changing the direction. It's when you turn the cards side by side is when they would change. So what the first thing they have to do is they have to go in and they have to get the casino to change their procedures. Okay. And so they say, hey, we're not, we're superstitious, like you pointed out, Matt. So we want, instead of you just turning end over end, we want to be able to do is the dealer lift up the card, we'll look at it, and if we like it, we think it's a lucky card, turn end over end. But if they bring it up and we don't like it, we want to turn it side over side. So what they were doing is the players weren't sorting the cards. The players were influencing the dealers to sort the cards, or I should say manipulating the dealers to sort the cards for them. The funny part is they're doing this with management's approval, because management didn't see the problem with this, where Kelly's son knew that if they could arrange the cards and they could play them off the top of the shoe, and they knew, and we'll get into the ranging, they knew that a 9, 8, and 7 were at the top of the shoe, they would bet on the player. And if there was any other card, they would bet on the banker, okay?
And that would be because due to the rules of Baccarat, 7, 8, and 9 are considered a natural, so they never pull another card, right?
Well, the thing is, it's 7, 8s, and 9s become strong, okay? Because you're gonna have a higher win frequency. I think it's the next slide on here, Matt.
Well, let me jump in here 1 second, though, please. For people who are not familiar with the game of Baccarat, the idea is to get a total as close to 9 as possible. So whoever gets, and there's 2 hands they deal, a player and a banker, and whichever one winds up getting closer to 9 wins the hand. And the casino has to follow certain rules. They don't have any discretion as to whether or not to take a card. And so whoever gets a total closest to 9, and you just add the total of the cards together. If you have a 4 and a 5, that's a 9. If you have a 1 and a 2, that's a 3. And 10 value cards count as 0. So if you had an 8, and a 10, that would count as 8. So that's the ultimate goal, is to get a total as close to 9 as possible. So that's how you play Baccarat.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we look
So
at
this slide here is sort of, this is just showing how they were telling the difference of the cards, right? It was that little
Right.
horseshoe shaped window in the shoe is what they were looking at, correct?
Correct. And the thing is that I've used these slides in my presentations on game protection. And matter of fact, advance to the next slide, Matt. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What I've done is I circled the area of the card. And what I did is you really can't see the enlarged diamond down there. But what I've done is I've taken a highlighter and highlighted it. So what Kelly's son was doing is, after she got the dealers to manipulate the cards and sort them the way she wanted, anytime she looked at the shoe at the beginning of the hand and she saw there was a card with a big diamond, which would indicate 7, 8, or 9, then what she would do is she would instruct Phil Ivey to bet on the player's hand. If she did not see one of those, she would Phil automatically bet on the banker, right? And once you bring the next slide up, Matt.
And that first card always goes to the player. So if she saw 7, 8, or 9, that's why she told him to bet on player, because she knew that was a very valuable card for the player to get, correct?
Exactly. And it's for the people out there that don't understand Baccarat, this is a little confusing. So basically what you need to do is just understand that the top card of the shoe is extremely important. And if we know the value of it, we can gain an advantage over the casino. Now, this chart, this was compiled by Dr. Elliot Jacobson, and Elliot is a noted mathematician and does a lot of gaming consulting work himself. So what he said, if the card on the top of the shoe is an ace, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10 value cards, 10 being from 10, Jack, Queen, and King, that if that's at the top of the shoe, if you bet on the player, let's say an ace, if you bet on a player, you're betting with a disadvantage. You're betting it, you're going to lose 7.8% of your money. But if you bet on the bank bet, because in Baccarat you have those 2 bets, you can bet player, you can bet banker. Is if I bet on the banker bet, I actually have a roughly 4% advantage. Now, if we go down that chart, you'll see, and I'm not going to count the
you'll see at the top of the chart, the first ace, 2, 3, 4, 5 is you have an advantage betting the banker if you know what that first card is. And then once you get to the 6, you'll see it jumps over to the player advantage. Now, a 6 is not a very good advantage. 3/4 of 1% is not very good, but as you see, 7, 8, and 9 get a much higher.
And Matt, from what I understand is Kelly's son had decided not to turn the 6s the same direction the 7, 8s, and 9s.
Mm-hmm.
So what they did was they just turned the 7, 8s, and 9s. So you've got one card, the 7, 8s, and 9s turn one way, and the other cards, other than 7, 8, 9, turn the opposite way. Now, once you go to the next screen, there we go. Okay. Now I included the 6 on this one, but you can see on top is if there was a 9-8 or 9-8-7, and I even included 6, but it's just a marginal. It's not going to change anything. If you see that on top of the shoe, that's all you know. You don't know if it's a 9 or 8 or 7, but you're playing with about a 12% edge if that's one of those cards and you bet on the player. But if you don't see one of those cards, you bet on the banker and you have a 5% edge. And it comes out to an average of right around 7% player edge, which is pretty strong. Because
that 7% might not sound like a lot to people that don't gamble, but to advantage players, a 6.7% edge over the house is huge.
Well, you figured that in Baccarat, the house, a normal standard house game, has an average of 1.15, 1.2% advantage over the players. We're talking six times stronger here. So it's just
in the player's favor.
Right. And you're not turning the tables on the casino. You're turning it over and over and over and over and over again because it's really large game.
Yeah. So and just to put it into simple terms, I think most people that card count, if you card count and you have a 2% edge, that's considered a gold mine. So this should be even better than that. It's almost 4 times better than that.
Steve, if you get a 2% edge, and you're doing really good, because actually professionals are trying to get a 1% edge. So this is very, very strong.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, did you have another slide you wanted to do here? Do you want me to go into what happened next with the casinos asking for their money back?
At this point, and we'll just go back to discussion.
Okay. All right. So they won this money, $20 million. Borgata paid them. Crockford's didn't. So what happened is Ivey sued Crockford's for not giving him his winnings. And in 2016, took 4 years, a court ruled in favor of the casino because they said edge sorting, which is the process we were talking about here, that the players were using called edge sorting. The judge said it was not a legitimate strategy and was cheating for the purposes of civil law. So Ivey appealed that, and the next year, 5 justices unanimously upheld the previous decision and dismissed the case. So he never got the money from Crockford's that he won. Sound right, Bill?
That sounds about right, yep.
Okay. So later, Borgata found out about what was going on at Crockford's, as you had mentioned, and they filed a lawsuit against Ivey and Chung to get their $10 million back. And in 2016, a federal court ruled that they had to pay back $10 million. The judge ruled that they did not commit fraud, but did breach their contract with the casino. He found that they did not abide by a New Jersey Casino Controls Act provision that prohibited marking cards, even though they didn't actually mark the cards. Ivey appealed that ruling, and in July 2020, that was 8 years after he won the money, the two sides agreed to a settlement, and it remains confidential. They never released it. So it's interesting that in both cases, the judges ruled that there was some form of cheating, but Ivey always said he considered himself an advantage player and not a cheater because he never touched the cards. So being in the business of protecting the casino from cheaters and understanding what advantage players do, what is your opinion on the case?
This is my opinion of it. I'm gonna get a bunch of casino people upset with me, but it's an advantage play.
Okay.
And he said, well, I can't argue with a federal judge. Federal judge says it, you just read about that, said it was civil cheating, which I don't understand that. First of all, why do I say that? The cards that Phil Ivey and Kelly's son used to do this were approved casino cards that the casinos have been using for years. All right. Casinos know that there are sort problems with cards, but since it normally doesn't come into play, they choose to ignore it. Now, these games were mini Baccarat games, which means the dealer is the only one to touch the cards, unlike blackjack.
Yeah, and the difference between mini Baccarat and regular Baccarat is in mini Baccarat, the dealer touches everything. Only thing the players touch are their chips, and they put it in player banker. On the regular Baccarat tables, that's like what I was talking about earlier in Macau, where they deal them directly to the players, and that's when the players were bending them and all that kind of stuff because they were superstitious, right?
That's correct. And we call the other form, we have mini baccarat, they don't touch the cards, and then we have the squeeze game. And squeeze is where the players squeeze and they get in there and they look, and they do it for good luck. And it looks like, they look like a dip chip when they get done, right? They completely destroy them. So matter of fact, and this is important for this conversation, when you have a squeeze game, they get rid of the cards immediately after the game's over with. So they're not reused. In the mini baccarat, they reuse the cards, all right? So if we're going to have the dealer sort them, we use that information after the shuffle and when the cards come back into play for the second and subsequent rounds, okay? So that's very important. Now, what they did was the cards that they used were blemished. Everybody knew that. They have a procedure for the dealers to turn the cards over. But because Phil Ivey was Phil Ivey, they requested some change to the procedures, which the casinos granted. And they said, we want the dealers to turn it over a certain way. Now, they told them it was for superstitious reasons, right? But the casinos granted this. Now, one thing about Brigada was that Brigada, like I said, he went in and played 4 different times. When he played the first time, they showed him what they wanted and they got the dealers to do it. When Phil Ivey notified Brigada he was coming back for his second trip, management actually took a handful of dealers aside and taught them how to do this for him. Wow. Good old customer service, right? So when they say that first of all, he was marking cards, he's using their cards. Yeah, they manipulated him into doing this, but they had plenty of time to change. Each time he kept coming in, they'd bring the dealers back that had been trained and they would deal the game. So they were just handing him the game.
Well, that's crazy. I didn't know that. The fact that Borgata trained the dealers for him is even crazier.
Well, one thing about it, and I don't, there's a lot of issues here, is that the regulators and the judge, actually regulators knew what was going on in Atlantic City and they didn't even they investigated it and said, no, there's no cheating. But the judge doesn't really know
about gambling.
He doesn't understand that. The lawyers don't really understand gaming. And even though they get a whole experts, because I did testify for the defense on this case, right? I didn't testify. I gave him a statement. And they didn't even depose me. But they don't really know. Okay, so when you work with attorneys, they have their own way of doing things. So unless you can convince them other than that, they're going to do it that way. I won't want to talk bad about the attorneys on the case, but I don't think they presented this in the light that they should have presented it. So in both these situations, in Croxford's in England, in the Brigada in Atlantic City, they used the cards that were on the table that were approved, and they were able to get management to okay the changes in procedures. I don't see how that's a crime.
All right, well, the bottom line for me, I always thought was, well, if there was a crime, they would have arrested him, and no one was ever arrested. So I guess it had to be an advantage play. So of course we all agree with you.
Yeah, and well, I kind of think the same way, because the same thing is an advantage play that people do all the time, not all the time, but on tables is hole carding. And that's when you have a sloppy dealer and you can see some of the cards, the face down cards as they're dealing them. And that's not considered cheating because they say that it's an error on the casino side. And you're just exploiting that. So I don't see how this isn't the exact same thing.
No, that was one of my arguments.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing is that you got to remember that the Phil Ivey, again, I'm going to say this one more time, is not the brains of this operation. Kelly's son represented the team that was the brains of it, and it was another advantage player, and I believe he's from Australia. I'm not going to go into who he is, but he put together these teams, and they went in and played similar to this in Las Vegas for 10 and a half months before they were stopped. okay? And they used the same thing, but none of they used the cards, and they got, matter of fact, they made a different change to the procedures. It was even worse for the casinos, but they understood that this was not a crime. Those casinos understood that this was an advantage play and never went after Kelly's son and the rest of the players for a civil or criminal case.
Yeah, what's interesting is because Borgata paid him, and then I remember this going through the news, and then I think they had originally like just asked for all the comps back, and then I think that when they saw that Crockford's did the same thing and won, they got kind of ballsy and were like, well, if they won, then we should be able to win too. There's a legal precedent there.
Well, first of all, Brigada, and I don't like that, the people that are there, the guys that are working in the pit, working in surveillance are good people, okay? But they let this go through. They didn't catch it. And the only reason they caught Phil the fourth time was because the Croxford's case had just come down, and they found out about the Croxfords wouldn't pay him through the news, middle of his fourth play at Brigada, right?
Oh,
So they wouldn't
okay.
even known it. They wouldn't even have known that he'd done this. He could have gone into perpetuity for that matter. He might still be playing there except for the Croxfords play. All right. Now, the Croxfords play, how did they snap to it? Well, they snapped to it because when Phil was leaving, he says, just send me my money, wire me my money. And one of the floormen said, he was looking at the cards. He says, you know what? I'm watching them turn them. I think that what they're doing is they're spinning them around. And he showed him the sorts on the cards. And that's when Crockford snapped to it, was after Phil left. They went back and reviewed the tapes, watched him turn the cards, and figured out that's what he was doing.
All right. Well, this was a great interview talking about one of the greatest scandals in the history of casino gambling. So,
Definitely in my lifetime, and probably of all time, maybe. Would you say this is one of the biggest casino scandals ever, Bill?
Yeah, you know what it is, because we got it has all the sexy elements. It's got a big name poker player. It's got
A lot
him
of
with
money.
a strange Asian girl, and they're playing in England, London, England, and they come back and they play Atlantic City. And then it's drawn out, and you've got judges involved and attorneys involved in it, and we're talking big money. So it's a sexy case to begin with. So yeah, this would probably be one of the bigger ones.
Mm-hmm.
all right. Now, if people want to get more information about you and your consulting business, how would they do that?
They get a hold of me through my website, which would be billzender.com, billzender.com, or through my email. They can email me, which is wzender@aol.com. Shows you how old I am.
Okay, you are a great guest. Thanks very much for being with us. And I wanted to tell people that we plan 2 more interviews with you. One is going to be on 5 ways to make money in a casino, legally make money in a casino. And the other one, Matt, do you?
It's going to be 5 things you shouldn't do to make money in a casino.
There you go.
Oh yeah,
That
that one. The 5 biggest casino cheating scandals.
Yeah.
So we have those on in the future. Bill, thanks again very much for being with us, and we look forward to talking to you again.
Thanks, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
Okay, take care.
All right, so that does it for our interview with Bill Zender. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. Leave us a comment below. Let us know what you think. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on any of our other great videos.